welcome back to the No BS Spiritual Book Club's live video series. And joining me today to share the stories behind the 10 books that influenced her the most on her life path is fully recovered attorney turned life choreographer, best-selling author, international speaker, and I love this one, burlesque dancer, Lora Cheadle. And Lora, she integrates her unique skills as an attorney, a hypnotherapist, an aficionado of all things dance and fitness related. And she coined the term life choreographer to describe her methodology for teaching women how to reclaim their sovereignty and their own naked self-worth, which is the ability to value themselves for who they are, not for who they do. She's also the creator of Burlesque, choreograph a routine, embody your new life, burlesque and bubbly dance class, and deep conversations. How do you think of these, Laura? They're wonderful. And find your sparkle coaching programs, workshops, and destination retreats. And she's the author of Flaunt, Drop Your Cover and Reveal Your Smart, Sexy, and Spiritual Self. And she writes for all the best magazines: Elephant Journal, Yoga Magazine, Yoga Journal, Aspire, The Girlfriend, Thrive Global, Medium. And she co-authored The Legal Rights and Responsibilities of Teenaged Parents while still in law school. Laura, my goodness, welcome. How did you manage to pack all that into one lifetime?
Oh, thank you so much. I just enjoy what I do. And when I find something that speaks to me, it's easy to just keep rolling with it.
So you kind of incorporate everything
I do.
into what you do. You don't leave anything behind. It all comes with you.
Absolutely. Because we're all so interconnected,
Yeah.
minds, bodies, spirits, other people. Yeah.
So what made you turn your back on the law?
A couple of different things. First, practically, I was a mom of two and my husband traveled, and it was really hard to do everything all at the same time. And second of all, I've always had a real passion for justice and for growth and for development. And ironically, I felt like that passion wasn't being served in the law. That if I really wanted to fight for justice, I needed to do it one-on-one before people would step into the legal system, where I could actually change the way they thought and the way they experienced life, instead of trying to clean up messes after they had already happened.
Well, that's pretty wise thinking. Yeah, get to it first.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your books. Now, normally I say to people, what do books mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Your answer to that question, which we put on your 10 best page, was delightfully refreshing. It actually echoes me, which is probably why it was so delightfully refreshing. Because when I tell people that I'll often read the end of a book before the beginning, they're horrified. But you get it. You get it, don't you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so nice to know where you're going and what is the structure. And yeah,
Yeah.
books are
Well,
so meaningful.
for me, that bit is, if I'm satisfied with the ending, then I know I'm going to be satisfied trying to work out how it got there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's such an analogy for life. If we know what we want, we can figure out how to get there. And then it becomes a game instead of, I don't know what I want, I'm just rolling with it.
Yeah. You said too that sometimes you read books, one way, sometimes another, sometimes you don't finish them. And you've often got 2 or 3 on the go.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Because there's so many different facets of my heart, my soul that need fulfilling at one point in time. Sometimes I need entertainment. Sometimes I need enlightenment.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's comfort. Sometimes, it's just that reminder of who I am. And books serve that purpose. But yes, there's books on my nightstand. There's books on my coffee table. There's books on my desk. They're just all over. They're integrated throughout my entire life.
Well, a little later on, you can tell us which book you're reading now. But first, I want to know, what was it like for you having to compile your list? I know that you couldn't limit yourself to 10. You sneaked in 11, and you actually had 6 series in there. So you've gone further than anyone's gone. So you can, you win that medal.
Woohoo, I like that. Books are my friend. So it was so much fun to go around to my different bookcases, to my different stacks, and to start looking through books and thinking, oh, I remember you. Oh, I remember this. There was a quote in this book, and then I'd flip through it and then I'd find, oh, I got sucked in reading and an hour has gone by. So it was really enjoyable. But there was also that element of frustration that there's so many good books.
Mm.
And then once I had gone through it all, I realized, wait, I have my Nook and I haven't looked at my library page on my Nook. And at that point I thought, that's all right. I'm already at several series and at 11 books. I'm just going to let that one rest. But they're also meaningful in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to limit yourself.
Yeah. It's like saying, well, which of your friends do you love best? I mean, you love them all for different reasons.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
a great analogy.
Yeah. So, okay, the very first book on your list is one that turns up again and again, and that is You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, which was published in 1984. And you say that you don't remember when you first read it.
No, I don't. It's one of those things that I remember who introduced me to it. My first daycare lady actually introduced me to it because when I was picking up my son from her home from daycare at one point, she said, I was cleaning out a bookshelf and I have 2 copies of this book. Do you want it? It seems like it's right up your alley. And I said, oh, I'd love it. That'd be great. But I don't have a memory of actually flipping through it or reading it. It just seemed like it became my go-to resource and that it's always been there. And it's so helpful for any time I'm struggling with a physical pain or my kids would have something, just to be able to go to the little index and say, feet mean, or earaches mean, and to be able to understand the emotions behind it. It's 9 times out of 10, it's spot on.
Do you ever then use natural methods, like flower remedies or homeopathic remedies to treat whatever that emotion
Yes.
is, as well as the physical manifestation of it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. My kids, I was actually really proud of this. They never had antibiotics because I was always using the homeopathics, the herbs, the essential oils,
Mm.
all of those different things. And it's not that I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong. There's a place for antibiotics when you've got an infection growing in your system. But we were always able to manage it a different way, which I think is so powerful. And even now, they'll call me and they'll say, what oil do I need? Or what herb should I take? And
Mm.
yes, that's absolutely our first line of defense, as well as I'll do this thing. It's a heart link that I learned from one of the other books. But when my kids need something and they're young men now, they'll call and they'll ask for that. And we'll talk it through and we'll do this heart link and we'll talk about the emotions. And we solve, I'd say, most of our problems that way.
Tell me what you mean by heart link.
A heart link, I had learned it came from Interview with the Angel and Stephen Thayer's work. We do this little connection, the Om,
Mm-hmm.
and it's linking hearts. So it's just quieting our minds. And I'll heart link with you right now. It's just sending love from my heart, receiving love from your heart, breathing, letting things fall, and trusting in the knowingness of what is going on in our bodies, in our emotions, in the world. And it's just re-establishing your own knowingness, your own connection to spirit, and allowing the truth to rise up. I need to rest. I need more
Mm.
water. I'm angry and this anger is eating me up. Whatever it is, bubbles to the surface, and then we can resolve it.
I like that, heart link. Yeah. So book number 2, The Yoga of Jesus, Understanding the Hidden Teachings of the Gospels by Paramahansa Yogananda. I looked this one up. I hadn't heard of it. It's a recent publication compiled from his 2-volume work, The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of the Christ Within You. And what intrigued me about this one is that he actually reveals the hidden yoga of the Gospels and confirms that Jesus, like the ancient sages and masters of the East, not only knew yoga, but taught this universal science of God realization to his closest disciples. Wow.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. And I have it on my lap actually, because this morning I pulled it up and was flipping back through it. And I was laughing because it's one of those books, I don't know if you can see, but just about everything is underlined. And what I love about this is I love the Gospels. The Gospels are beautiful. And I love the Yoga Sutras and the wisdom of the East. And this book unifies the Eastern and the Western traditions in a way that is so seamless and makes so much more sense. Because I'm sure everybody listening has had that experience where they read something and they go, I get it, but I don't really get it. I know there's more meaning to that, and I just can't quite figure it out. This book for me would always give me that aha moment of, oh, that's what was meant by that. I understand at a whole different level. And what's wonderful and frustrating about this book is I think it's a book you can never get through. Because just like as you grow up and you learn different levels of things, sometimes you watch a cartoon and you're like, oh, there's adult humor in there that I missed. Every time I read this, I get something else. So I have never completed the book cover to cover. I'm always just in snippets, spiraling deeper.
What is it that triggers that need to go back to it? Is it certain times when you're looking for an answer or when you're feeling in a particular mood?
Ooh, that's a really good question. For me, for this book, because it's deep, it's when I feel that need for that existential exploration. When I'm in a crisis, this is a little bit too deep, but it's when I just want to know more, when I feel ready to open up and expand to what all is possible, to what's really there. That's when I go to this book.
That's an interesting one. I shall check that one out. Number 3, Conversations with God, the entire series, a lot of them, by Neale Donald Walsch. So what is it that you love about Neale's books?
That is the one that I will go to when I'm in crisis. I love that it is in plain language. It feels like talking to a friend. So if I'm struggling with something that might even seem superficial, this is the book that I can go to and say, oh, I understand. It's not superficial. Everything is spiritual. Everything is connected. Even, as something as mundane as, I don't know, going to the grocery store or deciding on something. This is the book that has that response from God, so affirming that there is the divine within everything, that our entire lives are spiritual, and that spirituality can be in cleaning the toilets. It's not just on Sunday somebody can go to church, or just when we're meditating and doing our yoga. The divine is in all, and it's normal. And I love that.
You said that you would often keep them in the car with you, keep the books and read them while you waited for your kids to come out of soccer or piano practice.
Yes, because you're dipping in and out, and again, I have it too, dipping in and out of a conversation, and again, it's just refreshing. And yeah, you don't have to say, don't bother me now, I'm in the middle of this chapter and I need to figure out what's going on. It's just a conversation, and you can dip in, learn something, process it, come back.
Okay, number 4, another one of Neale's books. This is Little Soul and the Sun, the children's book. So what is it you like about the children's book?
Oh, even talking about this book can make me cry. It's a parable of two souls in heaven before they come to earth. And one of the souls wants to experience forgiveness. Sorry. So the other soul agrees to do something hurtful to that soul so that they can experience forgiveness. And we've all been in that place where somebody does something to us and we're just like, this is horrible. And you want to hate that person. And it's a reframe, that they're not a horrible person. They are a soul too, just as good as you. And it's not an excuse. It's not excusing the behavior. It is just such a deep connection in we're one. We are all one, and we all do really bad things and we all do really good things. And no matter what, we can join in our humanity and forgive and love and understand together.
Mm. When did you actually come across this one?
I came across that one pretty early on. And it was around the time when I first was reading all of Neale Donald Walsh's books. And I saw it and I thought, this is an amazing book. And I got it for my kids. And, I'm teaching them and I'm reading it. But when I was confronted with my husband's infidelity and I started learning of his double life and 15 years of devastation that I didn't know what was going on, that I came back to this book time and time again to help me understand and to reconcile all of my feelings of shame, hatred, vengeance. I still love you. How can this be? All of those conflicting emotions. And this book really helped me wrap my head around all of them. And it helped me see that it was okay to have all of those conflicting emotions and that I wasn't a victim here. And it was my choice on how to understand and move forward.
Wow. Did you got it for your kids. Did they take from it what you've taken from it? Has it helped them in their lives?
I believe that they have not experienced such devastating pain at this point. So they are still in the headspace of the book, not the heart space of the book.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Wow. Number 5, Living Your Yoga, Finding the Spiritual in Everyday Life by Judith Hanson Lasseter, published in 1999.
This, similar to Conversations with God, takes spiritual concepts that could be difficult to apply. And it gives, in maybe 2 pages, her story of something that's going on in her life and how she applies it. And what I love about that book is just that. It's her story of how she applies it. And some things speak to you and some things don't. And to me, that's the beauty of it. I remember the story of, her struggling with something, or I remember the story of her driving and being late. And I remember, and again, it's just very grounded real life experiences and ways that she applies concepts that could be esoteric. Because so much of spirituality to me is that we all understand and parrot these beautiful phrases, but so often we, collective we, don't apply it. And it's nice sometimes to just read a story of, and this is how I applied it, because then we can go, oh, that's so simple. I can do that.
Yeah. You really like the practical, don't you? You like to understand and you like to simplify.
I do. And I think that's partially due to my lawyer background. There's rules, and how do we apply the rules? And the rules are complex. And to me, that's what was beautiful about law. We can have our constitutional rights, we can have whatever it is, but application is difficult. Oh my goodness, application is so difficult. And life is not black and white. And the sooner we all understand that, I think the more connected that we can be. And that's what I love, these spiritual concepts. How do we do it?
Mm,
And it's
yeah.
different for everybody, and that's okay.
Well, the whole point about it is, we may be spiritual beings having a human experience, but we're having a human experience in a human world. And
Yeah.
applying some of those spiritual concepts is not easy in everyday life.
No. And I can apply the principle 100% perfectly from where I am. And you can apply that same spiritual principle 100% perfectly from where you are. And it can look totally different. And
Yeah,
neither of us is right and neither of us is wrong.
very true. Number 5 is a favorite of mine. One of my bookworms, The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment, Eckhart Tolle.
Wow.
So many people have been changed by this book.
They have been. And yeah, just the idea that we're not our thoughts, that voice inside monitoring. Who am I? Am I the observer? Am I the observed? What what can I do right now? What can I experience right now? And again, as an overthinker from my legal background, I think there's always this planning and this structuring and this more to do, and that I'm more successful when I bill more hours, and I'm more successful when I. What about now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm, yeah. You said that you've never finished this one or A New Earth.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Again, like so many of my books, I will go to a section and I'll read that section and then I'll jump around and I'll move to something else. And then I'll think, well, this reminds me of something from A New Earth, and I'll pull out that section. Oh, well, this reminds me of something. And it's like a trail. It's a trail of enlightenment, but not cover to cover.
So, is there any book that you can think of that you have read in the traditional way from beginning to end?
Yes, I have read books that way. It's just a different it's just in a different emotional experience. When I read something end to end, I'm in the story and I am enjoying it. I am in the now. When I don't read books in the traditional story, it's because connections are being made and that book is changing me in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have to take time to process it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. So, number 6, Same Soul, Many Bodies, and Many Lives, Many Masters by Dr. Brian Weiss. Again, great, great books. Really enjoyed those. So, tell us how you came across them, and what they did for you.
Oh, again, it's so hard to remember sometimes how I come across them, whether I picked them up somewhere or somebody gave it to me. But I I have been fascinated with hypnotherapy since I was in junior high school, and I checked out a How to Hypnotize book from the library. And my fascination has ranged from, like the parlor tricks to me going back to school and becoming a certified hypnotherapist. The power of the mind is so immense. And I was so fascinated with it. So I was intrigued because this was using hypnosis to go into past lives, which is something else I've been really interested in. But there's something deeper about those books. Again, it's the continuity of consciousness, the drop in the ocean. We come in as this body. We're in between lives. We come in as this body. We're in between lives. That consciousness is there. Those lessons are there. Why don't we remember it? And then why can we remember it? And on what level is the remembrance there, but that consciously we're not getting it? And that just sent me down that whole rabbit hole of exploring consciousness. And I'm doing things in this life and I might not remember, but on some level, I do know.
Mm.
And that took me away.
It's got to be one of the most fascinating topics, I think. The whole question of, many, many lives, and the fact that we don't remember, but there's always a link between them. I'm reading a book at the moment, which is one of the most fascinating books I've read in a long time, about a French journalist who had an experience and then went on a search. And there was just so much evidence that existed And so
Wow.
then he's trying to find out the link between himself and this other person and why he was suddenly getting this information and what to do with it. I'm going to be interviewing the man soon because, I mean, it's just we've all read stories of people who have said, I remember this, and, Indian children who go,
Yeah.
to the village and there's my husband and those kinds of things. But this particular story, I've never read one so detailed.
Ooh, I'd love to get the information. And the
Yeah.
other thing that was so fascinating about that, and I'm curious if this story is the same way, we get hung up on things in our life. And then when you look at this life to life perspective, there's so much that doesn't matter. And we get so upset, and people do horrible things to each other in pursuit of these things. And lifetime to
Mm.
lifetime, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even rise to the level of conscious remembrance because it doesn't matter. Yet we will sacrifice connection and love and other people to fight for that. And it's
Yeah.
such a good reframe.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the movie Cloud Atlas?
No, I've read that though, but I haven't
Mm.
seen the movie. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean, yes, of all the topics, this is one that really does get my interest. So, number 7 is The Law of Attraction, another series by Esther and Jerry Hicks.
so much about that. So much about that work resonates with me, that it is an attraction-based universe, that we are all, and this is my words, not theirs, but that we are all the center of our own universes. We are bringing things in and we are creating experiences based on what is going on inside. Our thoughts, what are we expecting? Our expectations. And it's the synthesis of so much that I love, from hypnotherapy and the power of the subconscious mind
Hmm.
to, um, the yoga of Jesus, and that we're all divine. We're all just a piece of the divine, and that we're all creators. And if we're all creators, what are we creating? And what have we been taught about not being a creator? And how to break out of the paradigm that we're victims and that life happens to us, and how to step into that power of I attract experiences and I attract joy the same way I attract misery, and that there's no judgment around it. It just takes us stepping into our own awareness. I've had 3 days over the weekend that I was just tired, and I just kept telling other people, I don't know, you decide. I don't know, you decide. And then I was finding myself getting angry with the decisions they made. And after 3 days, I thought, whoa, 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 I'm attracting this. I am not, I am not owning how I feel or what I want. And I was attracting these negative experiences. And I just had to refocus and re-step back into, what do I want? And I want people to feel joy, and I want to be in a state of joy, and it starts with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It all starts with me.
As you say, it's really about the vibrational match for an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was vibrating at, it's not going to be good, and I don't care, and
Hmm.
we don't know, and oh, we're on lockdown, blah blah blah. It's my vibration. I control that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, number 8, Gary Zukav, Seat of the Soul, an inspiring vision of humanity's spiritual destiny.
Yeah. It's funny. So many of my books are all reminders of what's inside, that we are spirit, we are God, we are creative source. And Seat of the Soul, what I appreciate about that is it felt to me a little more analytical, a little more headspace. This is how, this is why, deal with it. And I really appreciated that because I love the free flowing, magical spirit, but I also love this is how it works. And it was very direct, and it was a call to action. To me, Seat of the Soul is a call to action. You are divine. You do create this. Here's some really tough examples. This is what you need to do. Are you up for the challenge? Yes. Yes, I am.
I can see a thread emerging, your choice of books, that really give an insight into your character and where you're going in your life, where you are seeking.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah. Number 9, 2 books again. I love the way you've done this. Anne Lamott, Travelling Mercies, Some Thoughts on Faith, and Bird by Bird, Some Instructions on Writing and Life. What do you like about Anne Lamott's work?
Oh my goodness. She is a mess. And I love her messiness. She is a character. She is not afraid to say that she's a mess. She's not afraid to just stand up and be like, I've been an alcoholic. I've had abortions. I've had eating disorders. It's a mess. My life is a mess. And here's the grace. And it's the anti-perfection, the realness, the authenticity of her that I love. She's also a brilliant writer. I love the prose. I love the feeling, the way it all flows. I love words, and I love her word choice. I love how in her little vignettes, she will wrap it around and bam, give you this mic drop moment at the end that you didn't necessarily see coming. And she makes me smile.
Well, that's a good reason right there, isn't it?
Yes.
We all want to smile. Yeah. So, number 10, Interview with an Angel. I can't believe I've never heard of this book. An angel reveals astonishing truths about life and death, religion, the afterlife, extraterrestrials, the power of love, and more. Stephen J. Thayer.
I came upon that book. I went through this period of my life where I was actively seeking, and I was actively seeking anything and everything. And I was interested in the power of touch, healing touch, Reiki, whatever it was. And I came upon integrated energy therapy at some metaphysical bookstore. Some lady was, doing the energy work. And I hopped up on the table and said, yeah, sure, have at it. Whew. Shimmery rainbow colors were flying through me. I had so much feel around this energy work. And I said, what did you do? And she said, well, it's this integrated energy therapy. And here's the book of the man who kind of discovered it. It's Interview with an Angel. And I took it home, and I think I read that book pretty much nonstop. It's just a channeled work. It's based on the audio tapes of this discussion with this angel named Ariel. And it's one of those works where I'll read it and I'll know that I'm changing. I'll know that I'm connecting dots and getting this insight. And then somebody will say, what was that book about? And I'll say, I don't really know. I've been reading all day and I don't really know, but wow, is it good?
So, tell me about the healing part that this woman learned from this book.
So hard to explain, but it's the energy field. It's again that connection of the energy, and how sometimes we're focused on healing the body, similar to Louise Hay, when it's really the energy, the emotions, the thought patterns that are in misalignment. And just like we can take an aspirin and it'll make our broken bone feel better, until we set that bone, the pain from the broken bone isn't going to go away. So it's that layer of energy and that layer of spiritual healing and right thinking and right believing and healing in that energetic layer that will create that physical healing in the body.
So do they actually lay out the protocol in the book?
I don't believe so. I don't really remember because I also have the workbooks from when I did that training, and I believe the protocol is in the workbooks.
Ah,
I believe it's just the philosophy and the energy behind it in the Interview with an Angel book.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, we got through your books quite quickly.
Oh,
It's an interesting journey there that I see mapping out. So, how long have you been on a consciously seeking path?
a long time. When I was in high school in the 80s, I have an aunt who is in Boulder, Colorado. And for people who don't know, Boulder, Colorado is kind of a spiritual mecca. It's that place where all this woo woo magical stuff happens. And I was in high school and she invited my mom and I to come to a channeling. And I was like, a channeling? What's a channeling? She's like, well, it's, this a spirit who talks through her body. And I was like, yeah, sure, sounds weird. I'll come. It was incredible. And the way that it was incredible was not only in the words that were being said, but for me was how I felt around it, how I felt that interconnectedness, the vibration, how I could feel the truth in the words that were being transmitted. And from that, even before that, I had a desire, but hearing the tapes where we had them recorded on tapes after that and continuing to explore that was really the start of me actively seeking. Like I mentioned before, that in junior high school, I found this book on hypnosis. So I had always been really knowing that there was something more, knowing that things weren't random. I always had that understanding. From high school on, though, I sought information, whether it was in the form of books or going to meetings or just learning, asking questions, figuring it out. And I was blessed with a mom who was really she has done Emmett Fox forever. And just questioning and sharing and asking. And even my grandmother was very open to things. Well, what does this mean? And that doesn't make sense. And how do you feel about that? There were also times in my life where I would dive deep. Whenever I had time, I wanted to dive deep. I love my mind. I see my mind as separate from my soul, just like in The Power of Now, who is where. But I love cultivating my mind. I love expanding my mind. I love that feeling of learning more and of learning conflicting ideas. And then figuring out, how can I hold these two conflicting notions that I both believe to be true? How can I find coherence between these? How can I open my mind to add in maybe a third possibility that can help me bridge that gap, or a fourth or a fifth or even a sixth? And I've
So, was this kind of thinking, this curiosity that you had, um, was that compatible with the law or not?
um great question, because it's a difficult answer. Yes and no. Yes, it's compatible because they're so separate and distinct. Because the law is about understanding those rules and then applying them to each situation. So that, no, because they're very different, and no, because oftentimes people don't want to hear feelings behind it or reasons why or how this could be better. But then, yes, absolutely, because we're all just humans in this system. And how can I, as a human, maybe, fighting for my client, and you as a human fighting for your client with completely different goals, how can we come together with our common humanity? And how can maybe we correct an unjust law or offer some guidance on the application of that law that will make it better for everybody. Because ultimately, we're all seeking healing. Law is just a framework to make it better, to make it just, to make it fair. You know, even if you take like a divorce, it's a tough situation. Two people have conflicting goals, but ultimately, we as humanity want both people to go forth and thrive. How can we do that? That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's an interesting paradox because, the law is very precise. The law is the law. And yet you may have a client and you know the rights and wrongs of this case, and yet you have all of this higher knowledge. That must be very difficult for you not to want to apply because, there's a bigger picture.
Yes. I had this one case. It was very early on, and I was doing divorce law, and we had to have a a meet and greet, for lack of better words, where, I represented the husband, the other guy represented the wife. We got together in the conference room, and it's a status conference, basically. We had to sit down and decide, what are we going to fight about at court? What have you decided, and what's at issue? Because you can't just walk into court and not know. So I found myself sliding into this mediator role, and it got deep because the sticking point was vacation time. When it's spring break, when it's Christmas break, when it's summer holiday, where do the kids go? I instinctively went to the emotions behind it. And everybody started talking. Well, my mom had done this to me, and I want this for my kids. And well, I really want this, but I'm mad at you because you made this. There's emotion behind it. And we talked about it, and they came up with a settlement that everybody was okay with. I will never say pleased, because nobody's ever happy in a divorce situation giving your kids away half of the time. It's always, but everybody was pleased. And as we walked out of that conference room, the opposing counsel said, gosh, you should go into mediation because that was so much easier. And you've saved them thousands of dollars just by talking about the emotions behind why.
Yeah.
And whenever we're locked into a position, it's not really that we want that. It's that there's an emotional trigger behind that.
So are you never tempted to go back into the law knowing what you know now?
No. No.
Yeah. So tell me about yogalesque. Tell me about burlesque. Tell me about bubbly dance class.
It is all so much fun. And everything that I do really is an offshoot of these books. It's all that the power is within. It's all that we can create and design our own lives, our own way. What I love so much about burlesque, for people who don't know, burlesque is an art form, and it pokes fun of the status quo, and it makes us look at all of the hypocrisies that we have, and it makes fun of them. Sometimes female nudity or male nudity is used, not complete nudity, never total nudity, but like the body is shown. So if you think about breasts, they're here to nurse babies. There's often controversy around nursing in public. Can you nurse in public? Oh, that's disgusting. That's obscene. That's what they're there for. But nobody complains about, a fashion show with like the Victoria's Secret fashion show or nudity on TV when it's about things sexy and provocative. That's okay. But nursing, don't do that. That's a hypocrisy. Let's talk about it, and let's laugh about it, and let's get to some of those triggers beneath the surface. And that's what burlesque does. And that's why it's funny. And it's creative, and it's mentally provocative. And yes, it can be physically provocative too, because of the triggers. So that's what I do in burlesque and bubbly, yogalesque, and in my burlesque dancing. I invite people to create the life that they want to create. In yogalesque, after 5 weeks, you walk away with your own piece of performance art. And that piece of performance art is who you want to be, if you weren't afraid of other people's judgments, who you want to be if you were free to just live life the way you want, look the way you want, act the way you want. be who you fully are, whether it's bringing that spiritual nature into a legal practice or something else. And then over that 5 weeks time, we start stripping out of our labels, our roles, our scripts, those identities that have been put on us that we are holding onto, but that don't really fit. And it's a really deep emotional process because I invite people to examine who they really, really are and who they really choose to be. And when you reveal yourself as this, that's where naked self-worth comes in. When you reveal yourself naked, emotionally, spiritually, I'm not a Republican or Democrat, Baptist or Catholic. I am a soul and I am me. Wow. It's stunning how much of our worth we place on that which is external. But when we do that, we open up ourselves to the possibility of being taken down and judged and being thrown to the wind. It's about
So
you.
how did this evolve? How did you come to this?
It's so interesting because parts of it I knew all along. You know, parts of it were just inside of me and I knew it. And I was afraid to do what I'm asking other people to do. I was afraid to just step into my power and say, no, I am me and this is perfect.
Because you're talking about self-expression. You're
Yes.
talking about removing the masks that we wear or that have been placed on
Yes.
us, and allowing ourselves to express who we are.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's hard because there's times in our lives where we want to do it, but we feel like we need permission. And then sometimes we think, I don't need permission, I'm ready, but I don't know how. So there's all these different layers. Who am I? What do I want? How do I do it? When do I do it? How? It's just, it's confusing. And through my own journey, I've done it better than other times and worse at other times. But I've done it in different ways. And it has changed me. And it has allowed me to find joy, even through this horrific infidelity. I am happy. It impacted me, but it didn't impact me. I was never the victim. Never. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And
Well, that's an interesting word, and it's a very interesting topic of the moment, of our era, if you like. And I think it's one that has, we've only just opened the can and started looking at that one, and we've got a lot further to go. So, do you offer, classes, retreats, workshops?
I do all of it. I do a weekly burlesque and bubbly class, and the weekly burlesque and bubbly class is just getting into your body. We're all in our heads. We all overthink so much. But when we're in our bodies, that's where our knowingness is. And when we move and when we breathe and when we touch ourselves and feel, then we become who we are. And then that expression is so much easier because we're confident and we're not sitting there thinking, how do I look and what do I think and who's going to think? And if I do this, then she's going to do that. And then da, 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 da. Then I do my 5-week yoga less class. And that's where you absolutely create that vision for yourself and you decide and you create that routine and you practice going there in mind, in body, in spirit. And then my absolute favorite is my 5-month life choreography process. And again, that's where we take a month on each piece, creating that vision, stripping down, revealing who you are, re-choreographing, because let's face it, we can't do this in a vacuum. We can't just decide, you know what, I am going to do it and here I am, figure it out, everybody else. It's a process and we are in relationship with others. And if I'm going to be the full expression of who I am, it is going to change my relationship to other people. How do we do that? And that's that re-choreograph piece.
How do you do it during lockdown? How do you, can you do this online? Can you
Yes.
have online classes?
Yes, I have made everything virtual. I used to do the retreats and the workshops and all of that, and I love it, and I can't wait to get back to it. But I've been doing it virtually. It works wonders. And what I like about virtually on Zoom, we can record things and people can go back to it.
Mm. So tell me, what sort of people come to you? What attracts them to you?
Ah, mostly women. I have had some men, but mostly women. And it's mostly women who have been the really good girl. They've always stepped up. They've always done the right thing. They've always tried really, really hard. They've always been, I'm going to do it. We can do it. I can sacrifice. Blah, blah, blah. And at some point, they're like, whoa.
Mm.
I am more than who I am to other people. And I can still be in service, but it's about me. And I can shine bright. And I'm tired of living for other people. And I'm tired of being judged and putting on a smile when I don't feel like smiling.
Mm.
And now is my turn.
Yeah. Well, you sum it up in the title of your book, Flaunt. It's something that we are all taught must not do. It's a
Yes.
no-no. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And when we all flaunt who we are, and I like to step back from that and say it's not about intentionally being inappropriate. It's not about being a jerk and being mean to people because you feel like it. I believe we are all a piece of the divine, and that as that piece of the divine, we are good. Yes, there are some people out there who've got a severe psychological issue who do bad things, but most of us don't. Most of us are balanced within a certain realm, and that we all want to create good. We all want to feel good. That our natural state is not being an absolute jerk to people. And when we flaunt our divinity, when we flaunt our vulnerability, when we flaunt even our mistakes, it's okay to have a mistake and to have it made out loud, because that means I'm living fully. That means I'm trying. The greatest things come from mistakes. And when we all just flaunt and accept and make mistakes, we all grow.
Very well said. You know what I love about this? I mean, there's a number of women who are dedicating themselves, their life, their work to helping women throw off the shackles, the shame, the embarrassment, the fear, the conditioning. And some of them are doing great work, and many of them are doing, raw sexuality work. What you're offering is something in between. You're offering somebody something that they can do, and they can do it in small steps. It's I just think it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. It is. And you're right about the small steps, because I have one of the exercises that I do, and I encourage everybody watching to do this, to get some hand cream and just to rub it on your hands feeling. It's pleasurable. It's sensuous, and you smell it and you feel it. And it's just a small step, but we're humans, we're in bodies. And I also think a lot of the dark side of sexuality and abuse comes from the fact that we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
And everything that we constrain and cover and hide and shame, it's got to come out. It's a piece of every human being. Sexuality is just like breathing or eating. It's a piece of our physical biology. Just talk about it.
Yeah.
Just talk.
I do want to ask you before we finish, what book are you reading now, or half reading?
I love that you asked that. I have read Gone with the Wind probably 15 times. And over the Christmas, I was at my mom's house and she pulled out my grandmother's copy. It's in this little Ziploc baggie because it's falling apart. And she said, "Look, I found your grandmother's copy of Gone with the Wind." And I said, "Whoa, I would love to reread that in light of what I know now versus what I didn't know when I was 20, in light of everything that's going on in the world." And I've been reading it. I am blown away. I am blown away at how much of my work is in that book, because every character in that book is not living their truth. Scarlett is not living her truth. Melanie is not living her truth. Scarlett and Rhett together, are stepping more boldly into living their truths. The slaves, they're not living their truth. I mean, not one person. They're all bound by these external rules. And Margaret Mitchell talks so much in the characters about being trapped. And I just read this line by Rhett Butler at the dance when it's for the cause, and when he tells Scarlett something about, and I'm butchering the lines, but something about, if you want to dance, even though you're a widow, go dance. And that she gasps and said, "How could I?" And he has this beautiful line about how closely women cling to the chains that bind them. And I thought, amen to that. Isn't that
Wow.
true for all of us?
You brought that up because I don't know that anybody think of Gone with the Wind in that way. I mean,
No.
I'm sure we've all seen the movie and maybe read the book at some point, but we wouldn't have picked up on that. And you probably wouldn't, many
No.
years ago.
No, not at all. I'm highlighting like crazy, which is kind of crazy. I'm like, whoa, I didn't get that. Whoa, I hadn't noticed that. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your authenticity.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your courage as well.
Thank you.
I think we're done for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I will just leave you with a goodbye and a thank you. And again, Lora, thank you so much for joining us.